But first, as war looks increasingly likely, Boris Johnson has warned Vladimir Putin that invading Ukraine would be a painful, violent and bloody business.
The intelligence is very clear that there are 60 Russian battle groups, about 60 Russian battle groups on the borders of Ukraine. The plan for a lightning war that could take out Kiev is one that everybody can see. We need to make it very clear to the Kremlin, to Russia, that that would be a disastrous step. And so what we're saying is that the UK is leading on creating the package of economic sanctions, working with our partners around the world. I'll be talking to them this afternoon, this evening, talking to colleagues in other capitals and in Washington. But we also need to get over the message that invading Ukraine from a Russian perspective is going to be a painful, violent and bloody business. And I think it's very important that people in Russia understand that this could be a new Chechnya.
Very strong stuff from Boris there, a strong performance from the embattled PM. The UK has pulled staff from its embassy in Kiev amid warnings the Kremlin would face harsh sanctions should its troops cross the border. Russia has around 100,000 troops around Ukraine, and NATO has been putting forces on standby in the region. Let me bring in Darren Grimes now, who's been analysing this perilous situation and has a theory as to why some of our European allies have been reluctant to stick the boot into Putin. Darren, just how close are we to war here, and why aren't some of the nations on the continent being anywhere near as strong on Russia as Boris was today?
Yeah, it's good to be with you, Dan. I mean, you're right to say 8,500 American units tonight as we speak being placed on heightened preparedness to be deployed in Ukraine. And meanwhile, Dan, what you say about the PM there, I completely agree. He was great in that clip that we've just seen. But Twitter right now is awash with people discussing Boris Johnson cutting a cake with his wife Carrie and an interior designer. I mean, it does put things in perspective somewhat, talking about Ukraine. But I'm actually really concerned about the rhetoric, some of the rhetoric that we're hearing, especially from American liberals, right, discussing Brexit Britain. I've just watched CNN, Dan, where the former David Miliband, Ed Miliband's brother, he was saying that actually what we're seeing is a more isolationist and an alone Britain during this crisis. And I have to say, I've never heard more sneering anti-British sentiment since I watched BBC News. Honestly, it was extraordinary. Because the opposite is true, Dan. The polar opposite is true. The way I see it is that actually one of the strongest nations, whilst doddery old Biden is on the sidelines, one of the strongest nations is the United Kingdom right now. Germany refuses to supply Ukraine with weapons and has been actively, by the way, which will be shocking to some viewers, actively preventing Estonia from helping Ukraine. As they say, we actually send our anti-tank weapons and we're going around Germany, even though the fastest route would be to fly directly over Germany. And there are reports, Dan, that actually the reason for this is that the British government don't want to ask Germany because it could be embarrassing for their administration to have to actually reject the request. And you might be thinking, well, hang on a minute, why on earth would Germany want to embolden Russia that is out for land grab, essentially? And it all comes down to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is a gas pipeline, which is pumping gas. It's not yet pumping gas, but it plans to pump gas from Russia to Europe. Now, Putin is actually using Ukraine, hoping Ukraine rolls over, and actually using the German response here to approve this pipeline. Because more shockingly of all, Germans have actually refused to say, Dan, that they'd suspend this pipeline if Russia does actually invade Ukraine. And that, to me, is utterly damning because, well, I mean, maybe we needn't be surprised. Germany abandoned its NATO spending commitment of 2% of GDP on defence, expecting others, frankly, to take care and pay for their defence, the defence of Europe. You compare them with the likes of Lithuania, by the way, bravely standing up against Chinese bullying over the former Soviet nation allowing Taiwan to open an office in its country. You compare them with Ukraine as it stands against a Russian bear that is on its doorstep, bravely standing up for its own nationhood. And I think Germany's response is, frankly, slightly disgusting. And perhaps most tellingly of all, you go back to all these Brexit debates, Dan. Remember, people like me were smeared, people like Nigel Farage, people like Aaron Banks, were smeared with allegations of being stooges for the Russians, and that we were told that Brexit would actually help the Russian state.
Hardly.
Well, look at those. Yeah, exactly.
No.
All those
Very
who
good
dare
analysis,
push
Darren.
these conspiracy theories.
Very good analysis on all of this. But I want to bring this back to politics, local politics. When you look at all of that, surely that is why we cannot, as a country, allow for a Tory leadership contest right now. More important things are going on. I know you've been very tough on Boris for good reason, but when you look at what's happening in the Ukraine, do you not think this is a reason for us to all just simmer down and let Boris sort this out?
I think the opposite of that. I think right now we need a serious person in number 10. I think right now we need a serious government in office.
Like a Liz Truss? A Liz Truss?
Well,
would you like her?
I don't know who. I'm not gonna, go out.
You're not going to show your hand
up on
as
the
yet.
ballot. Exactly. I'm not. But we need serious government because these are serious times, Dan.